Producing music is a lot like traveling sometimes. Sometimes when you're in your creative process and you are out exploring, something can distract you. It can be something small, it can be something big, but it'll completely take your attention and take you to somewhere that you were not expecting to go. In traveling, oftentimes those have been some of my best stories, and stories I'll never forget, experiences that taught me a lot. And in music, it's the same thing. Some of your best work can come by accident. Recently, I had one of those experiences with reverb of all things. So, throughout my career so far in music, reverb has always been there. I love reverb, it's beautiful, it really adds an amazing amount of space to music, but I've never been someone who's been obsessed with reverb. I've always used the same couple of reverb plugins within my DAW Logic, and it was only until recently when I decided I needed to discover something new about reverb that I decided to dive headfirst into the world of hardware reverb pedals. So today I wanted to bring you guys on my journey of my discovery with reverb pedals. I searched long and hard over the internet to find 3 of the best reverb pedals on the market: the Strymon Big Sky, the Death by Audio Rooms, and the Empress Reverb, and I want to show you guys what each of them sounds like and what my thoughts are and which one I decided to keep in the end for my studio and for the Miles Away project. There's a couple honorable mentions I'll put on screen here of reverbs I wanted to include, but I decided to limit it to 3 so that I could learn the most of these amazing pieces of machinery and figure out which one was best for my sound. So let's dive in. I'm going to be showing you guys 3 different types of examples. One where we're going to focus on synths. As you guys know, synths are one of my specialties. One that's going to be much more ambient, and one that's going to be more of a beat to simulate what a reverb send would be like once I actually get this hooked up to my rig. For the entirety of the video, we're going to be using the Synthstrom Audio Deluge. It's a really awesome piece of kit. I'm working on a video for that as well, and that way I can kind of replicate the same melodies, the same basses, the same drum loops every time from projects that I've made before. As always, if you like this kind of content, please remember to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow, and let's jump into the world of reverb pedals. So first, we'll dive in a little bit into each of our 3 contestants here. So the Strymon Big Sky is an absolute classic. For any of you guys who are into reverb pedals, you'll probably have heard of this one. This was the first one that was recommended to me. Strymon makes some of the most amazing sounding pedals overall, and I'm really excited to dive in. This one I've heard is excellent on ambient music. It's very popular in the church music community. It's very popular in the post-rock community, and I'm excited to dive right in. Next up, from my homeland of Canada, we have Empress, the company that makes the Empress Reverb. Now, I came onto this reverb through Ben Jordan's video on him saying this is the greatest reverb pedal of all time, so I have some high expectations for this. I'm excited to hear what it does well, but from my research and why I chose it for this video, apparently the Empress has some of the best sounding algorithms, some of the most realistic reverbs, and a really amazing mode called Ghost Mode. Finally, the Death by Audio Rooms. This one was the wild card, and I'm going to give a full shout out to the YouTube channel, The Pedal Zone. I'll link his video below because this video completely sold me on this reverb. I was blown away by how good this reverb sounded, and it just, the aesthetic, everything just struck me out as something being really different. And as you guys know, in my last video with the OB6, character over features, while the Death by Audio Rooms definitely does not have as many algorithms as the other 2, and it's almost the same price, it definitely has the most mojo and vibe, and that matters to me. So let's jump on in and let's check out how it sounds in the context of the 3 examples. Again, this is going to be really informal. There's great reviews on each of these 3 pedals online that I definitely urge you to check out. I'll link them in the description. This is more just my tangible experience playing with these reverbs after owning each of them for a couple of days. Again, remember to like and subscribe if you like this kind of content. I really love bringing it to you, and I can make more of these videos if my channel grows more, so I really appreciate it if you guys like, subscribe, turn on the bell, all that good stuff. Let's jump on in. Alright, so the first test we're going to do here is we're going to go over a basic beat like this and just kind of see how each reverb will handle each part of the beat. So this is the beat on its own, really simple. And here I'm using the Synths Deluge. It's an awesome piece of kit, and this way we can kind of test out each bit individually that I made. Bass, synths. Alright, so let's start off with a basic synth line and see how each of these reverbs handles it. So starting with the Strymon. So we can hear really, really clean sounding reverb here. This is the room algorithm. Sounds pretty great. All. Can change the tone. The low cut. Sounds awesome. Where I really think the Strymon excels is with one algorithm called Cloud. It creates this incredible granular cloud behind the sound. So if we go 100% wet, that right there already is like just an ambience that I would probably use behind a track. Can shape the bass. Sounds amazing. Let's add in the bass. This one algorithm alone, to me, is worth $1 million. Take it off. Just adds so much atmosphere. What I'm really impressed about with the Strymon, with all of the modes, but especially the Cloud, is how no matter how much low end or tone you add in to shape the low end, it never gets overwhelming. It's probably the easiest reverb of the three to avoid any sort of muddiness in the low end. Let's add in drums. You can hear how here there's a lot of grains. That's specific to this algorithm. But it sounds so good. Let's do the drums on their own. Turn down the decay. Go to a room. Pretty solid. Definitely, it's overall, whatever algorithm you choose, the character is super clean. I think that's one of the criticisms that's sometimes levied against the Strymon is how clean it is. It does sound a little bit less organic, but I personally really love how this sounds. And I think of the three, for the type of music I make, this would probably be the easiest to mix in. Alright, moving on to the Empress here. Now the Empress is a really incredible reverb as well. As you can hear, as you're about to hear actually, probably the biggest difference with the Empress is that it's going to be warmer and more organic sounding, which is both a blessing and a curse. So I think of the three, it has probably the most realistic sounding algorithms, but at the same time, I did find when I was doing demos earlier of the three pedals together that I had the hardest time actually mixing in some of these reverbs, even if they sounded amazing on their own, because even with the low end knob down low, they still sounded very, very warm, sometimes to the point of needing to be shaped, but it's still an amazing sounding pedal, and I think that you guys are going to love the way it sounds on some of these parts. So let's take a listen. I'll A-B all of these after as well, but for now, let's play around with the Empress a little bit. Again, the synth line. This is one of my favorite algorithms on the Empress, the Ghost. Let's bring in the bass. We can really shape the high end and low as well, but you hear that? If anything even past 12 o'clock, for my taste personally, is too bassy on the Empress. Listen to those reflections. One of the most organic reverbs I've ever heard. And this is just the one ghost mode. So what ghost is doing is it's adding some resonances behind. I've got it on the more friendly ghost mode here. The other one is a little bit intense. Let's go back to the one I like. Go without it. So lush. Side of the drums. Oh yeah. I love the way the Empress handles drums. To me, of the three reverbs in my experimentation, the Empress handles drums the best. Just drums alone. Let's jump to like a hall or a room again. Let's jump to the room so it's even. Oh man, so good. Listen to how real those reflections sound. Absolutely love that. All right, and let's jump over next up to the rooms from Death by Audio. So the rooms, what you're gonna find with this one is this is a really wild pedal. It's by far, I've found, the most unwieldy, the hardest to reel in, the hardest to tame, but at the same time, of the three, I'm gonna go on record and say this one has the most unique character by far, where I think Strymon is celestial, synthy, beautiful and airy. Empress is more grounded and organic. Rooms is sort of just its completely own thing, and it's got an immediately vibey character that, to me at least, inspires me right away when I use it. So let's check out the basic room setting here on our synth pad. So another cool thing about the rooms is it actually has, it's the only reverb pedal that I've seen so far that has its own unique dry and wet knobs, which means you can actually do 100% wet or 100% dry, as well as get your own amplification signal in there and kind of test out what you need and get the right fit there. So let's check it out on the synth. This is 100% dry right now. Back here. One thing to note about the rooms, it will cut a little bit of the high end out. You hear that? Might actually be more noticeable on the drums. With this on, it immediately sounds a little bit like it's low pass filtered or lo-fi. Now, I'm not sure why that is. Just bear in mind that is something it does. It might be because it's a guitar pedal first, whereas these I think are a little bit more well suited for synths in general. But for me, it adds to the vibe. If you need pristine, unaltered signal, this is not the pedal for you. Okay, anyways, where were we? Let's check it out. So, rooms. Bring in the room here. Immediately lush. We can do these pretty cool live performance stuff by increasing the depth, which actually stereo spreads it. Frequency and depth are going to do different things for each algorithm. Let's bring in the bass. Vibe. Listen to how wide that is. I mean, man. Insane. Drums. To me, this one instantly, to be honest, kind of inspires me the most of the three. It might be the hands-on controls. There's just something about it. It's something that just gives me instant vibes. switch down to a lower room. So it can do the room thing. Not the most realistic sounding, but it is a really interesting vibe for sure. This one has stereo spread too. One mode I really want to touch on with the rooms, which is just so unique and worth the price of entry alone, is Algorithm 5, Wave. Just like Ghost and Cloud, I would say this one is my favorite on this pedal. So what Wave does, and we'll listen to it on basically just the synth on its own, is it's going to add a slow modulated reverb with an LFO on pitch to give that warbly kind of tape wobble effect that you know I love from all my other videos, all my music. I use that effect a lot. I've never seen it before so well implemented into a reverb where it's not actually wobbling the sound of your signal or any sort of delay. It's the actual reverb itself that's being modulated with LFO pitch. So let's check out how that sounds right here. We're going to slowly bring it in. Just listen to the wet. Vibe. How amazing is that? Incredible stuff. Alright, so next up, before we move on to another demo, we're going to go ahead and compare 3 settings on each one that I've tweaked a bit so they sound great with this track. And you guys can let me know what you think of each one, which one fits the track the best, and kind of get an idea about how this will sound in a real production session, kind of each one batting at its top performance. So we're using the Cloud algorithm here on the Big Sky that I love. We're using the Ghost algorithm that I went over here, and we're using the Room algorithm with a really nice long decay and nice stereo width on the rooms here. Despite that I love the wavy algorithm here, I think it just works better with the rooms on this one. So starting off with the Strymon, let's go. This is immediately a vibe. You can instantly put this in a track and it barely even needs any work. Maybe let's take a little bit of the low end down. The level of tweakability on the Strymon is just incredible. Let's compare that to the Empress. Sounds really good too. I think I'm hearing a little bit less stereo width and a little bit more of it kind of being a part of the sound rather than floating behind it. And then rooms, let's compare. Much darker. Much more ominous. Back to the Strymon. You hear how just effortlessly that sits there? Empress. And let's go back to rooms. So wide. Pardon me, I was using the digit algorithm, not the rooms. I misspoke there. Awesome. Okay, moving on, we're going to see how each of these fare on dealing with more ambient material, like swells, for example. So I've got this just basic swell thing going here. Really simple, but beautiful chords. Okay, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna just play around with that and see how each of these reverbs handles that more of that ambient, long tail, atmospheric reverb. So again, starting with the Strymon, we're gonna be using the bloom mode here, which I really like. This is another one like Clouds where it just sounds spectacular on anything that you could want to have a long reverb tail on without getting in the way. So let's check it out, starting with dry. Mixing it in. Add some modulation. Let's switch to the Empress. Here we're using the Hall setting. You can hear right away, it's not as light. You know, even with the lows almost all the way down. Here I'm definitely giving it to the Strymon for how it's handling the ambient material. It still sounds great, but see here I would have to EQ that out, and even with the low on the minimum, it still sounds a bit too mid-heavy for my liking. That's definitely something that could be fixed later in post, but it doesn't have. If we go back to the Strymon, it just floats on top of it effortlessly. Let's go ahead and try a different algorithm here. We'll try the ambient swell algorithm, which is another nice one. See if that can see if that can hold up better to the Strymon. There you go. That's got a nice amount of top end in it. It's almost like a shimmer reverb, but we're not looking at those right now. I don't use shimmer reverbs. There you go. This modulation one's nice. Anyway, moving on to the rooms. So far, I think the Strymon's the winner. So here we're going back to our trusty algorithm 1. Now that is lush. I love playing with that dial, sorry. It's beautiful, but it's almost too much. So here we're gonna go to algorithm 3, peak, which is a band pass filter, which is, again, this is where this character comes through. Listen to how cool this is. We've got a bandpass filter that we can control. Here, I'll increase resonance and sweep it so you can hear. So you can pick out exactly the frequency band with resonance that sounds the best. So cool. Okay, we'll give the Empress one more try here to compete against these two, because so far I'd say it's a toss up between Big Sky and Rooms. Let's fire off the Ghost algorithm here, our trusty. Back to Rooms. Let it fade away. I mean, that's just so much nicer for this particular sound. Okay, one more time to Big Sky. close battle between the Big Sky and the rooms here. Let's add in some bass and bells. Again, dry signal. Beautiful. Rooms. Oh man, like, for me at least, this one's gotta be the winner for Ambient. With the filter control, it's almost like an instrument. Empress. Again, it's definitely not bad, but I just feel like I'm missing that humongous sense of space that pulls on my heartstrings and makes me think about life and death. Yeah, so I think for there, the clear winners are the Big Sky and the rooms for ambience and long atmospheric reverbs, but that's not to say the Empress can't do it well. It does do it really well, specifically on the ghost mode and the modulation modes. Okay, let's fire off one more demo here. Again, this is going to be a bit more of a similar one to before. Okay, so for our last demo here, we're going to look at another beat, but we're going to focus more on just how it would handle an entire piece of music. Normally I'd use reverb as a send, but today we'll cheat a little bit by having it be mixed in. But what I want to do here is just kind of give you guys an idea about how each reverb will react to multiple instruments at once. So the beat sounds like this: dry. Let's start with the Empress here. I can't believe how realistic the Empress sounds. Check out the plate. I like the hall better. All right, let's tie this up with the Strymon hall here. For me, Empress is the clear winner here. Anything to do with realistic sounding reverb, Empress has the best algorithms, in my opinion. Let's check out rooms. Again, you can immediately hear the low end drop out, eh? Sorry, high end drop out. Okay, cool. I could probably play with these for a lot longer, but just from my initial impressions on how each reverb would act as a send, as a general like ambience and something to tie together my mix bus, here the Empress is the clear winner for me because it just has such a warm and realistic sounding tone to it, specifically on the hall modes and the plate mode is pretty good too, but really both the hall modes that are included on this version of firmware I'm running, they sound so realistic and so good to me. And the Strymon obviously does a serviceable hall as well. It sounds great, but again, that's kind of where our synthetic airy texture is coming from, where everything Strymon tends to sit kind of above the mix and on top of it, whereas the Empress kind of, it feels almost more of a part of the mix. And for that reason, it kind of actually worked against the Empress, as we saw before with the ambient stuff, where it sounded too full and too warm and too muddy, even with the bass control down. But here, as a send reverb, where I'm trying to get everything to sound together, it just absolutely is, you know, unparalleled in terms of the quality of the reverb algorithms, in my opinion. Rooms, bit of an unfair advantage here. You know, I could just have the dry off and be running this as a send, which I probably would do. And it's super vibey. It sounds great, but it just doesn't have the same level of realism as something like the Empress. Being totally honest, if I was just running this as a send, I would probably still take this over the Big Sky, just because I do love that gritty organic character, and it's definitely a vibe. But yeah, for reverb sounds that are going to be realistic, something you're going to want to mix in, I think the Empress is just really hard to beat. Alright guys, so that about does it. So here are my final thoughts. Overall winner, the Empress Reverb. I was so impressed by the Empress Reverb's algorithms. It sounds incredibly real. It just immediately feels like how reverb should sound. And overall, the Empress just blew me away with how good it sounded in the tiny form factor that it has, with really great hands-on control, no screens. You guys know I love stuff with no screens. And overall, that one was my grand prize winner. In second place, I'm going to give to the Death by Audio Rooms. I thought that the Rooms was incredible sounding. It has the most character of the three, and it really, really blew me away with some of its more creative modes, and it had the best ergonomics. It felt the best to tweak live. It felt like an extension of my synthesizer, or in this case, the Deluge, and I was so impressed by that. And finally, in third place, while I still loved it, I'll put the Strymon Big Sky. The reason for this is that the Strymon Big Sky, in my mind, in my humble opinion, excels at one thing really, really well, and that's ethereal, heavenly reverb tails that last forever and float effortlessly behind your track. The cloud mode alone, I'm going to give grand prize to the absolute best algorithm. I would buy a reverb pedal that just had the cloud mode on its own. It sounds that good. But what I found was when putting the Strymon to the test compared to the other two, it didn't quite do character as well as Rooms, and it didn't quite do realistic reverbs as well as the Empress. All three of these are amazing reverbs, and you'd be lucky to have any of them. I decided I'm going to keep the Empress and the Rooms, and I'm going to send back the Strymon, because for me, I really, really value the Empress for how good it sounds on 90% of stuff, but for the last 10%, I want that special something, that special sauce and character that the Rooms has. And at the end of the day, throughout this whole process, I will admit the Rooms is the reverb I played the most. So there you go. That's my thoughts, guys. Let me know in the comments which one you like the best. Let me know if you have a reverb pedal that you think I should check out. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.